Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our next exciting edition of the Elle'vate Podcast. Elle'vate is all about educating, inspiring, and promoting local women, and one of those things is education. So, June, as you may or may not have known, is actually Alzheimer's and Brain Disease Awareness Month, or Brain Disorders Awareness Month, excuse me. So we have actually got the amazing, fantastic Madison Buchanan, who is the program manager for the Alzheimer's Association, and she is our guest today. And she is, I know, she is going to be discussing with us some of the little things that people just don't get about Alzheimer's, and like the fact that 2/3 of the people that suffer from Alzheimer's and dementia are actually women, which is not something that I knew, right? You always hear about like grumpy old men. Like, it's not grumpy old women telling you to get off.
Well, they always think grumpy old women are it's because of menopause. That's why. Is that right, Madison? It's a common misnomer, I think. Menopause, grumpy old women,
Maybe.
Not that I've been accused of that lately. I'm just going to throw that out there. However, it's a thing. Just a thing. So, all right. Yeah. So, Madison, we're excited to kind of understand the backstory of like what attracted you to become a program director with this organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I'm so excited to be joining you all here today and giving you a little bit of information about this. And so with my career, I've actually kind of been interested in nonprofit health for many years, for about 9 to 10 years. I've kind of been in this world. And, you know, to the Alzheimer's Association specifically, I had my own personal connections that brought me here. And we talk about, this is one of those diseases that a lot of people, if not most people, have been touched by in some way. They've seen it in some capacity. And I am just one of those many people, right? So I actually have experiences with this in my own grandmother who was diagnosed with dementia when I was young. And we saw that progression, and it is a slow progressive disease. And so it was about 11 years of watching her progress through this. And now she was a kind of a specific situation where she had some strokes along with the dementia. And so we saw a very specific reaction where she actually lost the part of her brain that motivates you. And so with a stroke, she lost half of her movement and her body, right? And that's something that can be worked through and kind of gotten over with some physical therapy. But because her brain changed in that way that she didn't have that motivation, there was nothing to drive her to do that. So no amount of, don't you want to walk again? Don't you want to play with your grandkids? And it didn't do anything because that part of her brain just didn't exist anymore. And so it's just a perfect example that this disease presents itself in different ways in everyone. And so that's why this education is so important. We always want to share. It's not one size fits all. It looks different for everybody. And so that's kind of what brought me here, is wanting to share my story, but wanting to share that education so that people can kind of begin to understand different ways that this may look.
Okay, so then what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And honestly, it's one we hear all the time, right? Because outside of really the medical field, the terms are used interchangeably. So dementia is really, we like to talk about it as an umbrella. So it's kind of that overarching name and category of diseases. And these are diseases that have an impact on your cognitive ability. So it's your thinking and your memory and oftentimes your behavior. Alzheimer's disease is one disease under that dementia umbrella. So it's one form of dementia. And you hear about it most often because it's the most common. So it accounts for 60 to 80% of dementias. And so that's, again, why you hear about it so much.
So then my aunt, I didn't even make this connection to you were talking, but my Aunt Opal, who was always like outgoing, she was always running and doing and funny. And, she just was always, now I don't even know if it was, but dementia is what hit her. And when it happened, her deterioration was so fast. Is that how it normally happens? Or were there maybe signs that people weren't picking up because they thought, oh, it's just crazy Aunt Opal, she's just getting it wrong. Does that happen?
So it's so different. It's so different in everybody. And so that's one of the pieces of research that's happening now is, what's normal? what is normal within this disease of what we might expect and what we might anticipate. Because you don't know. And, that's one of the reasons we talk about early diagnosis and detection is important, along with so many different diseases, right? You want to have those regular checkups and those regular conversations with your provider. We talk about it's not necessarily the individual who's going to see changes, but it's often the people in their circle around them that may see those changes. And so if there's something that's out of that normal, that's different for that person, so maybe they've always been kind of that cleaning person, right? So their house is always immaculate. And all of a sudden, maybe there's things stacking up in corners that didn't used to be, or maybe they always dusted and now there's dust everywhere. Well, for somebody who doesn't clean often, that's not really a big deal, right? Maybe they're just taking a break. But for someone who always does that, that could be a concern. So it's really important to kind of recognize those things when you start to see them. So just kind of being aware of those in your circle, because we think about it being something for older adults, right? So it's not even on our radar when it's a young person, say in their 50s, that's doing some of these behaviors. But it's important, if you see it, bring it up with your provider, because there is something called younger onset Alzheimer's disease, and that's under the age of 65. And so, you don't want to wait until you fit that category. It's 200,000 Americans in the United States that have this younger onset. So it's important that no matter what age you are, if you're noticing something.
Yeah. Well, and so, you start to pay attention, right? And you notice these things, and then what are the next steps, right? So say I noticed my mom, let's pick on Kathy, right? My mom started getting extra cranky, and well, this isn't the 1700s anymore, so I can't just lock her in an insane asylum. So, no, I'm just kidding. But, so what would you recommend then I take as the next steps? I know that we did a ribbon cutting for a company called Care Access in Hope Mills, and they have got some really cool research that they're doing that can, I guess, kind of help you identify if you're predisposed and stuff like that. But is there anything that you can do? So like, okay, you go in and you either find out that you're predisposed or you start to have these symptoms. Is there anything that can be done to kind of mitigate that? Or I don't even know, like make sure it doesn't get worse, or, are there any things that can really be done to help or to treat?
So it's a great question. And right now I will tell you the research is just going huge with all of the work that's being done. And we're making in-grounds finally to make some of that happen. There's not a lot that can be done right now because most of the treatments, for example, are all about treating the symptoms and not necessarily the disease. The good news is that there are several drugs in the pipeline that are being researched and created right now, and we're hopeful that in the next couple of years they're going to come out. But it's something like 6 drugs in the history of Alzheimer's disease that are in existence. And so this is something that is definitely new research, and it's new improvements that are coming. And so we're very hopeful for a lot coming down the line. A big part of that is being involved with research. We ask everyone to do your part. And so we actually have something really cool called Trial Match, and you can access that from our website. And we kind of describe it, it's like a dating site for research. So whether you're someone who's been diagnosed with the disease, whether you're a caregiver or you're just someone who wants to help in a way that you can go and sign up for that. And where there's research and clinical trials near you, you can actually be involved and kind of do your part to make a difference in that way. And we want research to be representative of communities. That's right? Cool. So it's important that people have that.
So then what recommendations would you have for someone who might have someone in their family? Like, what can the family do to support either the person that's living with someone affected by this disease or as an extended family member of someone with this disease?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think, number one, it's education, right? And that's kind of the first step in so many things. It's really to inform yourself on what this disease is, what it might look like, and then, what are some things that you might experience interacting with this person and this family. And so we have several education programs that are great and do this. And we actually offer those in person. We offer them online, and we have some on-demand versions and recordings of those as well. And so those are in different communities and available. But that's really that first step, is just get educated about what it is. And then you know what questions you can ask going from there.
Do you find that families that are impacted by this have a little bit of shame and they don't want to share, or they don't want people to know? Is that happen, or is it the exact opposite, or somewhere in the middle?
No, that's definitely something we see. Stigmas and stereotypes are rampant with this disease. It definitely has higher, I would say higher percentages of that in different diverse communities. You see a lot of people who are living in multi-generational homes want to keep that within the family. And so we do have kind of a hurdle there in getting the resources out to them, because they're not necessarily asking for them. And so that's where that piece plays in, of really just, again, sharing the education and the information to all communities so that they all have access to that, because not everyone is going to ask for it.
Well, there's been, I know I made the joke earlier, about throwing them in an insane asylum, but realistically, that was how a lot of these diseases used to be handled. It was, and even like the early onset cases, they were even more confused about what was going on. And menopause, like half the time, if you were a woman of a certain age and you started going through menopause and you were being cranky and your husband didn't want to deal with you, they could just go have you locked up. And I think that that's probably where a lot of the, the embarrassment that you get with people, it comes because it's so ingrained, because it wasn't, it wasn't a disease. It was just, Grandpa Joe's off his rocker. You know what I mean? And so that was like, you hid the cuckoos, and it wasn't, and I'm not trying to, be crass about it at all. But it was just something that, we don't let people know. And I think that it has definitely and will continue to come a long way with doing research on it, because more people will be open and willing to, either admit or search out these services, because it doesn't have as much of a stigma, associated with it. I think we've come a long way in helping to, identify, and you can speak to that more than I can, and make this, more of a open conversation where people aren't, hiding Grandpa because he has dementia. It's let's fix this. Let's try and figure out what we can do, not just sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, and so tagging on that, I was going to ask you a question: is so how can we support you in getting the information out? Are there specific agencies? Are there events? Is there stuff on your calendar that we can make sure we share? Like, how do we do that?
So I would say, first of all, we are always looking for connections, right? I love that word, connections. I want to really share the message that we would love to partner, first of all. So our offices are spread out around the state, around the country, but we're not in every community physically. So we know that the trust is in that local community and those local organizations that have their foot there. So maybe it's a faith-based organization, or maybe it's an area agency on aging, or a health clinic, right? It could look any different way. But when we are able to partner with those organizations, we kind of work off that trust that they've already established. And then we have the confidence we're bringing in of being a national organization and being health-based and research-focused, that when we work together, we can share the benefit of the education locally, right? So we cross a lot of borders in that way. So I think anytime, someone is willing to have that conversation about a partnership, that's huge. That's a big step. Another thing is volunteers. We are always looking for volunteers to work with us, and we have so many different options. We love people who come to us and say, I have a personal connection to this. I want to do something. What can I do? Because it's not one size fits all, even in volunteering, right? We love to work with people and find what that opportunity is best for them, and how they can work with us in that way. So those are two big things.
So June was Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, and I know you guys have a lot that you do or did with that. What are some of, the next big things that you've got coming up that, we could potentially get involved with, or some of the listeners can look forward to, or,
Yeah, absolutely. So our education programs are ongoing. Those are always available. That's at that website, alz.org/NC. People can find, again, those virtual, in-person, on-demand opportunities. And we're always looking for new opportunities for programs. So if you want one at your place of business, at your organization, reach out and we would love to schedule that for you. The other thing is our big fall events that are coming up, right? And these are what a lot of people recognize us for. And that's the Walk to End Alzheimer's event. So North Carolina, we actually have 17 of those events across the state, but we have one in Fayetteville,
Yay.
which is really cool.
Is that it?
And that one is actually...
Is that at the Woodpeckers? Yes, that's what I thought.
Nice.
Yeah, it is. And that one's on October 29th. So right there, right before Halloween.
We can get our steps in and then eat our candy.
100%.
I'm a mom. Yeah. This is mine. This is yours.
Parent tax. I like it.
So the one thing I wanted to kind of go back to is, we were supposed to have another guest, Jay, who was going to give us this information on what it's like to live with the disease. So can you kind of elaborate on living with the disease and what that looks like for people?
Yeah. So, we work with a lot of individuals living with the disease, right? And so one of the things that we've been able to get from those relationships is kind of what they would like others to know about them and about their diagnosis, because, they have a voice too. And I think that's one of those pieces that we talked about before with that stigma and stereotype, is that once a diagnosis is given, a lot of people sort of count them out, right? They're now this person with this disease. And so that's one of the main things. That's one of the first things they want you to know is that they are not their disease. Okay. They are a person. They're still the same person. And so, it's kind of, think about Tuesday, someone younger onset, right? Diagnosed before the age of 65. Maybe they're still a working professional. Tuesday, they're just doing their job. Wednesday, they're back in the office after a doctor's appointment, and now they have that diagnosis. They didn't change who they were in 24 hours. They are still that same person, and that's the way they want to be treated. So keeping that in mind is really important and definitely something they want you to know. Okay. Another big one is ask. Ask the person when you have questions. Ask the person if there's something you see or you want to know how they're doing, because communication is a big one, right? So again, thinking about those quick changes after a diagnosis, how would you feel if you went to the doctor and received some kind of diagnosis, and then the next day, no one was asking you about it, but they were asking your spouse about it. So now you have all of these people who have stopped talking to you and they're talking about you behind your back. And that can be very isolating. That can be very demoralizing. So talk with the person. They're a person. They're still your friend or your family member.
I don't think
so. Then how do most people? Oh, sorry, Casey.
No, that's okay. I was gonna say I don't think that's ever I've not thought about it from that point of view, and I've probably been one of the guilty parties about asking around the person like, "Hey, how's your dad doing?" instead of just like, "Hey, Frank, how are you?"
Yeah. I think that's the human condition, though. We don't want you're so on. It's just like, at a funeral, you really don't know what to say. Like people say, "I'm sorry for your loss." Well, what does that mean? We don't know. Right. And so I think it's just our uncomfortableness with the situation that leads us to go around with someone we're more comfortable doing. But I was going to ask, though, how blah, blah, blah. What programs do you have that support people living with this disease?
Yeah, so we have several programs and they really cover different topics. But one of my favorites that I love to talk about is the 10 warning signs, right? And so everybody wants to know, I did this. Does that mean I have Alzheimer's? Or does that mean I'm developing some type of dementia? And so this program does a fantastic job of breaking down 10 common things within dementia and Alzheimer's that you can look for in a loved one that is it's not a diagnosis, right? It's not saying if you see this in this person, it means they have dementia, but it might be a sign for concern. So it's something that you should talk to your provider about. But it also, along with those 10 signs of concern, it goes along and gives the normal aging that fall into those categories as well. So one I like to share all the time is about keys, right? You think about losing something, misplacing something. If you're forgetful about that, and we've all done it, you sit back and you think, oh, am I losing my memory? Is something more concerning happen here? Well, one of the best ways to describe it is someone with dementia, they walk into their house, they put their keys down because the phone was ringing and they answered the phone. So that's maybe not where they always put their keys down, but that's just where they did it this time. They might walk off and do something different. There's no retracing their steps. There's no coming back to what they did before. They just sat down and, oh, there's my keys. They were by my phone. But why are they by my phone? They have no memory of it because that memory just doesn't exist anymore. Whereas someone normal aging, maybe they forgot that they put their keys there, but they go back and sit on their couch and look and see that they're there by their phone, and they trigger that memory of, oh yeah, I answered the phone. That's why they're there. So things like that, with that important distinction of what that difference may be, are in that program, which is really cool. And then it also gives you the next steps. So you see this, you have this concern, well, what do I do now? And we've actually got a roadmap we've built in there of how to form and plan a conversation with the loved one, and then how to build that into questions to ask for a provider for that.
I feel like that is probably going to be some really helpful information, because I can't even imagine having to, go through this with my mom. I don't, it's like I was trying to do something earlier today that I'm not used to, and it was very frustrating for me. You know what I mean? I can't imagine if that was something that I was going through, with a loved one. And I think that it's really great that you guys have provided resources and kind of a roadmap to help out the families and the patients I think that that's awesome. And I think that that's a great resource that we are going to be sure to share on the Elle'vate and the Array page, so that everybody can make sure to access all of that. Because that's
So then tell me what the best thing about your job is. Like, what's the best thing about what you do?
I would say knowing that I can make a direct impact in lives every day. And that could be something as small as, I got a haircut yesterday, and I was talking with my stylist, and she had the opportunity to share about her own experiences with dementia. And that can be cathartic, right? Just sharing your experiences with someone who's not necessarily in it with you. Because you don't feel like you're burning someone, you're just sharing your experiences. And I love being able to do that for others. But it could be as big as working on conferences and things where I'm seeing hundreds of people who are coming and just getting educated about this disease. And so the big and the small, but having an impact is huge.
So if I had a magic wand, and you could have exactly what you wanted to make a bigger impact in our community, what would it be?
I think it would just be more opportunities to reach diverse communities. It's something that we're working on and really trying to get
Madison
out there.
is a magic wand. So like, I'm your fairy godmother, and like we're talking like who, like not vague, like who. Let's call it out. I'm a big set an intention, create it. So like my magic wand works. Ta-da. So if you could talk to one person, one organization, who would that be? That would like a partnership with them would really help you get the impact into those communities that you want, not like 6 months from now, but like 30 days from now, so that they could partner with you for your fall event. Like what does that look like?
A big one for me right now is reaching into the Hispanic and Latino communities. So any organization that works with bilingual individuals who recognize as part of those communities is huge, because we're starting initiatives right now to reach into those communities more. So that would be.
And then, so are there any obstacles that have been stopping you guys from doing that you're aware of?
A big one is having bilingual volunteers. Okay. So we have 5 right now that work within our care and support team, and we are always looking for.
Okay, so bilingual volunteers. What makes an amazing volunteer?
Passion is a big part of it, and then just willingness to make a difference, because that could look like something simple and easy, and that could take 5 minutes, or it could be something long and really involved. And so willingness to kind of do what's needed, I guess, is a big thing.
All right. Excellent. So if you, again, my magic wand is still out. How many bilingual volunteers would you want? You have 5. So 10, 15, like what do you?
20, 30, something like that.
Go back.
Yeah. Right, so we need them for the state. So yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. All right. Do I need to keep my magic wand out, or do you think we're done with it? Are we done with it, baby?
I think we're good with it.
Good. So, where are we're going to be able to send people to make sure that we help your fall event be the most successful?
Yeah. So, 2 ways, and these are also great things for just getting general information. So one is our website. It's alz.org/NC. And so that's going to give you local North Carolina information, but as well as, just resources about the Alzheimer's Association in general. The other is our 1-800 number. And that's one I love to reference because it's 24/7, 365.
Okay.
And, I love to give the example. Maybe you are an individual or a loved one that was there to hear a diagnosis at, let's say, a 5 o'clock doctor's appointment, right? You need time to process what happened, think about your questions, think about what's going on, and you don't have that time right then. So all of a sudden you wake up in the middle of the night, it's 3 a.m., you can't sleep because you figured out what questions you need to ask and everything's closed. We're not closed. Okay. We're open, and we have trained clinicians who can talk you through what those questions are and what those resources you need. So that number is 1-800-272-3900. And again, 24/7, 365. There's always people there to take your call and to help you through whatever.
Well, that's awesome. That's amazing. Especially in the world of voicemail and the phone trees that don't end. Yeah.
100%.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure learning and getting educated by you this morning, Madison. Thank you so much.
Yes, I had a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting us on.
Thank you very much for joining us. And for everyone else who joined us, be sure to like and follow our website, our pages on Facebook, our YouTube, because every Friday morning at 9 a.m. we are going to have another fantastic Femme Fatale from the Fayetteville area. Look at all those F's, y'all. That we are going to highlight and promote and talk about, and we're just thrilled about it. So if you or someone you know would like to come on and chat with us, we've got lots and lots of links, and you can submit a contact form and let us know that you are interested. And to get in touch with Madison, do you have an email that people can use?
I do, and I would love to hear from anyone. And my email is MD, like a doctor, Buchanan, BUCHANAN @ALZ.
And the website is alz.org, and the 24/7 1-800 number is 1-800-272-3900 for anyone who needed that again.
Especially for all of the bilingual people. We need 30 people. You heard her say it. Don't make my magic wand fail.
You guys
all right?
Volunteer. There's the number.
That's right.
We'd love to have you.
All right, thanks. Bye, Madison.
Thank you.